Hey there, all you creepers and reapers. Welcome to another episode of the Femme Fatalities. I'm your co-hostess, Anna, and I'm here with...
Hey, it's Margaret. Hello, all you grieflings and frightlings, and welcome to another episode. I think this one, for me, is going to be fun. We are doing Five Nights at Freddy's. Anna?
Yes, we are. So, why don't you go ahead and grab some Foxy fries and a super slushy shake, settle down next to the coffin, and get ready for a listen.
Ooh, yes. So if you haven't seen it, go watch it. Trigger warnings, kidnapping, child murder. Not a graphic film since it has a PG-13 rating, so it's not overly graphic. Any other trigger warnings, Anna?
Yeah, so we'll probably get into this more in the cast. And please, listeners, do not cancel me. I am new to this universe. I am completely uneducated. I have only seen the movie. Margaret is much more familiar with the concepts and different ideas throughout the Five Nights at Freddy's universe. But something that actually got me was the lack of closure. So we'll get into that a little bit further. But if you want that final scene where you feel like it's over, but it's open for a sequel, I don't know. For me, it was not this, and that's okay. But there is definitely, in my opinion, a lack of closure. We'll get into that in a little while. Also, just filial loss, parental death, loss of siblings, family drama. If that's something that triggers you, there's definitely a little bit of that in this film as well. And just very complicated relationships, I think would describe some of the characters in the film as well.
Yes, definitely. Those complicated relationships, traumatic childhoods as well, not only for the victims of the killer in the movie, which in the movie it is William Afton, aka whatever the career
Mhm.
counselor's name is. I can't
Yeah.
remember it. And we can get into that because, Anna, I love how you bring up that there's no closure. And that really touches on ambiguous loss. And as some of you know, Anna and I met in our postgraduate program for thanatology. And in one of our classes, we had to specialize in a type of loss. And I actually chose ambiguous loss. So maybe that's why part of me really likes how this movie touches on ambiguous loss. There is no closure. And for those of you that aren't familiar, ambiguous loss happens if we have a loved one that is either physically missing, so they've been kidnapped, they're in prison, they are a prisoner of war, or maybe they're a soldier and they haven't returned, or they are mentally missing. So this can be addiction, Alzheimer's, any other kind of illness that affects the mental presence of our loved one. And so I really appreciate how FNAF, so those of you that are not in the universe, Five Nights at Freddy's, those that are in the universe call it FNAF. I really appreciated how it touched on that. And even with Michael, the main character, how he keeps trying to resolve the loss of his brother, the kidnapping, because it's ambiguous until our yellow bunnied SpringBonnie Michael or William Afton says, "Now I'm going to kill you. I killed your brother."
Yeah. And I think that's an excellent point. For me, it's still somewhat ambiguous because there's no body. And so I'm very superstitious, and I respect other people's cultures, traditions, rituals, and beliefs as well. There are very large communities throughout the world that place a great amount of importance on the consecration of the corpse. So it was very hard watch for me. I don't really like violence against children either. It's not my favorite thing. So, just the idea that these poor kids were killed and their corpses are in the animatronics, their parents still don't know. Like, they still have no closure. And, like, their little dead bodies are in there. And it just, um, it, yeah, it's okay. It was hard for me. And if things are hard for you and you're listening, that's okay too. You can admit if something is hard for you because not everything in life is easy peasy. And that is okay. But I do think that Matthew Lillard was a great character choice. Um,
Love Matthew
yeah.
Lillard. And you really touched too on the importance of having a body. That is so significant. Like you said, culturally, for so many groups of people, having a body gives us that closure. We get to
Mhm.
see our loved one is deceased, so they are no longer here. When we don't have a body, like the parents of the missing children, they don't have that closure. So it leaves open all this hope. Well, maybe they're not dead. Maybe even if he was found out, like that he's
Mhm.
put the bodies in the animatronics, well, maybe that's not my baby that's in that animatronic. And I think having them in the animatronic adds to the personalities of these animatronics. It's not like Willy's Wonderland, where I believe the animatronics are possessed by a satanic group of like killers or something that end up working at a pizza place. I don't quite remember. And I don't remember in the Banana Splits movie. I think the animatronics are just bad. They're not possessed.
Mhm.
As listeners can tell, I've got a thing for animatronic horror movies, which I know is not Anna's thing. So I really appreciate her watching FNAF because I did kind of push her that way. Because, like Anna said, I'm into I understand the lore. I understand, well, the lore is very complicated. So if you are a listener, you will understand that there is a lot of complexity, a lot of what's in canon, what's not in canon. And I think that's part of the love for FNAF fans is just trying to figure out these puzzles that the video games, the books, and the movie now bring to the story of actually two families, the Afton and the Emily family. We did not see the Emily family in the movie.
Mhm. Yeah, and it's just for me, I think another thing that stood out was, um, we've mentioned our respective generations. As a millennial, like I went to Chuck E. Cheese. So on some level, I do believe part of the movie creeped me out because I would go to Chuck E. Cheese when I was a kid. That was like a real treat. And I mean, as a logical adult, yes, I know that Chucky is not alive. He's not going to eat me or kill me or anything like that. But um, I think just the idea that this is a fun, exciting place to go, and then something horrific happens. It's like in reality when an adventure park or a mainstream fun location has an unexpected tragedy. And I think that sometimes that can really impact the adult psyche, whether or not you're involved, a bystander, or just hearing about it in the news. Um, so it, I mean, I think if I can handle it, listeners, and you're unsure about it, you can probably handle it. Um, just to put that out there. But one thing I don't understand, and Margaret, maybe you can help me with this since you're aware of the lore, is so the daughter who is the police officer, why well, I know snitches get stitches, but like why hasn't she done something to try and stop her dad? Not like rat him out per se, but just to try and do something about these heinous acts he's committing.
I think that's where it gets a bit confusing in the movie because in the video games and the books, there's the Afton family and the Emily family.
Mhm.
So William Afton, who is the protagonist in this movie, who is the bunny, the yellow bunny. In the video games, he has three kids. So actually, Michael is his oldest son. Then he
Oh,
has a daughter Elizabeth, that's her name, and then a younger son that's just known as the crying child.
Ugh.
So, and it gets complicated. So, Michael bullies the crying child. There's an incident where Michael's teasing the crying child on his birthday, and one of the spring suits, like Michael and his friends put him up. They like give him a kiss, and the head chomps down, and it kills the crying child. And so a lot of people in the universe think this is the catalyst that caused William Afton to really start to lose his mind. So how does he bring his son back? How is he preserving his child? And there's arguments of in the video games, are you playing as Michael who's trying to figure out what happened? So in his grief, William Afton, and this is one of the theories. So Anna, if you ever go down this rabbit hole, there are lots of different theories for different things in the FNAF world. Is that William Afton is grieving his child, and so he kills his business partner, Henry Emily's child. That I think his child, Elizabeth. I'm getting confused. He has a daughter, and that's kind of the catalyst for everything. So I agree. This is a movie about grief and madness.
Yeah.
Spurred by grief. The movie really doesn't go into why Matthew Lillard's character is killing children, and that is very unsettling. I think as humans, as people, we want to know that why. What in you happened that you just went and killed 4 children and stuffed their bodies in animatronic suits?
Yeah.
And what in you as the child happened? And you can see in Vanessa, she's terrified of him. She doesn't know, so we can only guess what kind of childhood she has. There is, I believe it's one of the FNAF video games, and I'm sorry fans if I don't know which one. It's all about nightmares. And one of the children is in their bedroom, and could it be the crying child, could it be Michael? There's some speculation where the whole game is you are fighting off nightmare animatronics.
Wow.
In your bedroom. So there's why did William Afton do this to his child? He's a madman, so we could only guess movie child or video game children. I can't imagine having a child killer for a parent and not knowing why, and then what would that mean for their childhood? A lot of trauma.
Yeah. And even if you mentioning that made me think about Nightmare on Elm Street, The Dream Child. The fact that Freddy Krueger does have a daughter, and we find that out later in the series, and she goes back to one of her memories, which was of her father murdering her mother after she discovered that he was killing the neighborhood children. And like you said, just imagine being a child and seeing something like that, or finding something like that out about a parent, particularly like your protector parent, only to find out that they're doing these horrific things, and this is someone who's supposed to protect you.
Would you say in the movie that becomes switched, as you're asking about Vanessa, that her father's not her protector, almost that she's become parentified and now she has to protect him, even when he's like, you had a job to do, how could you do this? Almost as if he's upset that she didn't protect him. Somewhere there was role reversal.
Yeah.
And that's how we often survive. If we are in a traumatic situation, how do I survive? Well, if I take care of my abuser,
exactly,
my abuser will be less cruel to me. They'll be less hard on me.
And that's a primary example of abuser manipulation. Just for her to have the concept that if I take care of my abuser, it's going to be easier on me, right? And how many, I mean, not even just children, adults, how many people have been in a situation where they are with an abuser, and it becomes about that person. If I do this or I do that, they're not going to hit me as hard. They're not going to do this. They're not going to exhibit as much behavior. And not only by proxy have you become the protector or caregiver of this person, you're also still their victim.
Yes, and I think that's where you touch on the complexities of these relationships, that they aren't simple, so they can be really hard to witness. And the movie does not give us that deep backstory to help us understand the dynamics between Vanessa and her father. It goes more into Mike and Abby, and even
Mhm.
I want to backtrack a little how Anna touches on, like, she remembers Chuck E. Cheese. This is a place of joy. And that can feel like a violation. That is terrifying, when a place that we go as children to feel safe, to be loved, to be children gets
Yeah.
violated by a predator who is looking for the easiest targets of children to take and murder without any understanding. Again, we
Mhm.
like to know
Yeah,
why these children, why are you
mhm.
doing
Exactly.
what you're doing? And there's not a lot of context either in
Mhm.
the lore. And if there's any FNAF fans listening, please comment. Please, you can point us to where it is. There's a lot of people that are still trying to, and I wonder if that's why FNAF is so big, is because people are trying to figure out what
Mhm.
is going on. I wonder if the creator, Scott Cawthorn, I believe that's how you say his name, was working through his own fears as a
Yeah.
parent. We know that he's a parent. And what is one of a parent's biggest fears? Their child being kidnapped, their
Yeah.
child missing, their child being brutally murdered and
Mhm.
not knowing why,
Yeah.
especially in a place like Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, Chuck E. Cheese. You took your
Mhm.
kid to have fun and they were murdered there for no reason.
Yeah. Well, and maybe part of the explanation for why we don't find out as much, obviously the movie is what, 90 minutes, so that's part of it, but also it causes the viewer's imagination to run wild. If
And
we
that can
don't
be
have an
unsettling.
answer, we start thinking about, oh God, could it be this? Could it be that? What if it was this? And um, maybe that's part of the intent.
We don't know. And like you
Yeah.
said, that's part of the unsettledness. What was
Mhm.
the intent? And like in the saying, then our mind goes wild. Our mind likes to fill in the blanks, even if it's the wrong
Yeah.
blank. So if Anna just gives me a blank look and I don't know why, I may be like, yeah, she's angry at me because we just had a disagreement about our favorite horror movie and we don't agree. And Anna might just be like, no, I was just zoning out.
Yeah.
But my brain will go into how I perceive the world and then what did I do
Mhm.
wrong, or she's angry with me. And this movie gives us so much space
Yes.
to really fill in the blanks. What happened with Vanessa and her dad? What
Mhm.
happened to Mike's parents? We know his
Yeah.
mom died.
Mhm.
We just know his dad had a really hard time. So did
Mhm.
he leave? Did he die? Did he complete suicide? And
Mhm.
again, based on our own experiences and interpretations, we're going to fill in those
Yeah.
blanks.
Oh, totally. Well, and the movie also touches on guilt a lot. Mike
Hmm.
dreams every night of Garrett and what happened. And
Yeah.
I think that for me, it's a very heavy concept, because we've all lost someone out of our lives that we think back and say, oh, I wish I would have said this. I wish I would have done that. And even though this example is fairly extreme, like, I wish I would have saved my brother. I wish I would have grabbed him out of the car. I wish I would have paid attention. I wish I would have walked off to play. Whatever it was, it really speaks to the mentality of regret.
Hmm. Yes, that guilt, which we've touched on before, that happens when we're grieving, especially with complicated losses like this, where it was an ambiguous loss for years, like Anna's saying. If I hadn't have gone to grab the frisbee, if I had paid closer attention, if I had caught the car, and these are real experiences that
Mhm.
people have with grief, especially with traumatic loss. We are blaming ourselves. If I, and then that we don't resolve our grief. And we can see that with Mike. He is stuck in his grief to the point where, in a way, he's neglecting Abby. Not that he doesn't love her and he's not doing his best.
Mm-hmm.
He's not showing up as the best brother he can because he's so focused on absolving his grief
Mm-hmm.
for Garrett. And I think luckily in the movie, we see Mike have that epiphany where he's like, well, wait, I need to show up for my living sibling. Like,
Yeah.
my dead sibling or missing sibling is just that, and I'm actually harming her by not showing up for her.
Yeah. Well, and even when faced with loss and change, many people experience their lives totally turned upside down, right? So Mike's already consistently consumed with the abduction of his brother. At that point, he doesn't even know if he's dead or alive, right? So he's just consistently thinking about what happened to Garrett. Where is he? What's going on? Is he alive? Is he dead? Those sorts of things. And then to lose both parents in some way, shape, or form, and then to have all of these responsibilities, um, keeping a house, paying bills, working, taking care of a younger sibling, kind of thrown at him while he's still stuck in a great deal of grief, was very substantial.
Yes. Yes, I completely agree that I feel like FNAF is more of a grief movie than a horror movie because it's touching on so many levels of grief. Mike, Vanessa's, the children, how
Oh,
they
yeah.
start to infiltrate his dreams. They're grieving
Mhm.
because they just know that they don't have their lives
Mhm.
anymore and they want to be kids. They're grieving the loss of childhood, which we could argue that Mike probably is too because he's been consumed since the age
Yeah.
of 12. Vanessa, oh, just when you watch
Mhm.
her, like when she's in there and how she looks at the animatronics with love,
Mhm.
almost like she's got this maternal, like, oh, I need to take care of them. They're children, and the loss of her childhood, because we can, again, only
Yeah.
guess, having a murderer for a father,
Mhm.
what kind of childhood that was
Yeah.
for her.
Well, and even with the animatronics, she says something like, or we find out, I think Vanessa's the one that says it, that when he takes control, the yellow rabbit takes control, they act different.
Mhm.
And I mean, I feel like that speaks a lot to abuse situations, that when the abuser is not present, I don't want to say you're free to be yourself, because that's not necessarily the best way to phrase it. Um, but the constant worry and fear is not as strong as when they are physically there right in front of you.
It's room to breathe,
Yeah.
right? It's room to say, oh, I can catch my breath. I don't have this threat
Hmm.
anymore.
Yeah. Even if it's
For
just for a few minutes.
mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
also that, the kids that are in the animatronics, I do wonder, and maybe the universe explores this a little more, or the video game does. At some point, they're probably grieving the lives that they had before they died, and also, I don't want to say being unwanted or forgotten about, but at some point, do their parents stop looking for them? Do their parents lose hope? Does that actually impact how their spirits engage? And do we know anything about any of the children or their parents, or any of those areas? Which, once again, listeners, please don't cancel me. I am coming into this blindly. I've only seen the movie. I have not played the game, read any of the lore, any of those things. These are just ideas that pop into my mind when I think about what I just recently watched.
Yes. And I think the movie really brings that up. Where are the parents? Are the parents still grieving? Who were the children? Why were the children targeted. I and again, listeners, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't believe that there's any kind of backstory into the parents. Maybe in a couple of the books. I don't know for sure. I have not read all of them, so I'm not quite sure. And there's a lot of speculation about who the kids were, who they were. There's not a lot of backstory, just that Cassidy is one of the kids and considered to be the angriest. So there's speculation on maybe his murder was the most horrific. They don't know. And in the game, right, it's based on which animatronic is like the most aggressive and who's haunting them and why. So again, I think that that's what also feeds this universe, is that wanting to know who were the children, what happened to them, who were they before this happened. Chica, we know, is a girl, and I cannot think of her name. And so she has Mr. Cupcake. So there's speculation that Mr. Cupcake was her dog, because we do know that William Afton in the SpringBonnie suit, the yellow rabbit suit, said, "Oh, you lost your dog. Your dog," I think she thought the dog was dead. Maybe the dog died. Correct me if I'm wrong. "I have your dog in the back room," and how easily he lured her. And I think that that again plays on our fear of how easy it is for an adult to prey on the innocence of a child, right? To like, because as children, we're naive. Our parents are like, stranger danger, stranger danger. I think Anna, being a millennial, myself as a Gen Xer, that was really stranger danger. Don't take candy. Don't go help somebody look for their dog. Don't get into vans. Don't get into cars. I think as a Gen Xer, I can speak for myself, being the parent of a millennial. I think I was way more paranoid, because I would just, right? I ran around, whatever. I knew stranger danger, but I was still unsupervised with my daughter. Like, it was like, they have to have a code word. They have to know these things. If somebody says, "I sent them to pick you up from school," what's the code word? Do they know me? I would never send a stranger, because that fear that our children, some person could just show up and say, "Oh, your mom's stuck at work. I have to pick you up." And then our child. And then again, as Anna has touched on, we are at a place for children where we're trusting that our children are safe and that there is a predator who's lurking, an owner of the establishment. And that's scary, that he would create an establishment. And I don't know, again, listeners, do you think that William Afton created the establishment to lure children, or was it really the catalyst of losing his youngest child that caused him to use his establishment to kill children?
Those are all very good questions. And it's, you bring up that it is his establishment too. And it's kind of one of the things I initially thought when I was watching it was, didn't they do background checks? But the fact that it was his business, you know, he's not going to background check himself. So, just, yeah, I don't know. I usually I'm more full of feedback, but this one kind of had me at a loss a little bit. Just not having the backstories and just a lot going on.
What leaves a lot of unsettledness, a lot of that not being able to fill in the blanks and wanting more information. Who is our killer? Who is our hero? Who are these people? Who were the children? I hope that in sequels, I believe I believe Matthew Lillard has hinted that he signed like a 3-movie deal, that they're going to go more into that, but who knows? And I think, Anna, you touch on too, that we don't have a lot of information. And even in the universe, there are things that are canon and things that are not canon, and things that are part of the universe, but not part of the main story. And so it gets really confusing. And again, I feel like that's what draws people into the FNAF world, is just wanting to know, to put all the puzzle pieces together. I think that's something I love about the community. They're all like these detectives trying to figure out, oh, and And I'll tell you, Scott Cawthorn, who created FNAF,
Mhm.
he would leave hints in the code, in the video game code. He would leave hints in like pictures, like FNAF 3 coming, and you would brighten the image to find hints that
Oh.
fed the lore. So he did a lot of really complex things. So now people really are like, they become detectives, and there's still all these unknowns that it is unsettling. Again, because
Mhm.
why would a father kill children?
Right. Yeah, and it's a lot of kind of the whole, like, child killer genre. Um, it's different. For instance, if we look at it, right? So all of these kids shine. They have the shining. We know that they have had trauma in their childhoods and that they can see otherworldly things that are going on, right? And they use the strength they get from their ability to shine to fight Pennywise, right? But it isn't something the entire community at large knows about. Like, I feel like with Five Nights at Freddy's, like, these kids have been gone missing. You have to know the last place they were. You have to see a trend. Like, where is law enforcement? Where are investigative services? Where is the Department of Social Services? And yes, I realize this is a fictitious film and that the video game is fictitious and all of these sorts of things, but it's just like Margaret said, it just causes you to really think um if in particular if you're sensitive to the genre to begin with. Not that I'm staying up all night thinking about this, but when I do think about it, this is kind of where my brain goes.
Yes. And I think you touch on something again that, right, with it, this is a supernatural being. Our
Mhm.
brain, that softens something for us. We're like,
Yeah.
okay, these children are being impacted by a supernatural being. It changes the context. Again, we
Mhm.
go back to this primal fear of another human
Mhm.
targeting our most innocent, our
Yeah.
most vulnerable members of society. And as Anna said, where were all the fail safes to
Mhm.
protect our most innocent? It's one thing if
Yeah.
there's a supernatural being that
Mhm.
has to be fought, than just a community member. And where were the fail safes, the background
Yes.
check, the police, the parents, social
Mhm.
services, the
Exactly.
health department?
Yeah.
Where were all of these? And eventually in the universe, the restaurant does get closed down due
Mm.
to, I think it's smell,
Ugh.
or like instead, like the animatronics were oozing
Mhm.
stuff. So it does get shut down. And then still, where are the rest of the
Yeah.
investigations? Even in the lore, William Afton gets arrested on suspicion. But since there's no bodies,
Yeah.
he doesn't get charged. And that touches again on that primal
Mhm.
fear, or even in our society that says, you have to be innocent until proven guilty, even
Mhm.
though we suspect you. We think you've killed these children. But because we don't have bodies, we don't have closure. So
Right.
you get to walk away. And that, how many predators do we have in our world? How often? And
Mhm.
I don't watch current events often enough to keep myself informed, because that horror that says, okay, the, we're letting somebody that we know
Mhm.
is guilty get away because we don't have proof, or they have attorneys, they have money to fight the system. And so this movie really does poke a lot of primal
Mhm.
fears in a
Oh, yeah.
very subtle way, because it's a movie. It, we could argue it's a baby horror movie. It's right that a kid
Mhm.
could watch it and understand some things about ambiguous loss, and also
Yeah.
probably some fear about, am I safe
Yeah.
if I go to the local kid hangout place, the arcade? Who's
Mhm.
there lurking in the corners?
Yeah. Oh, totally. I mean, honestly, I think that if this movie would have come out when I was a child, my dad would have had me watch it and been like, that's why you don't talk to strangers. That's why you
Mm-hmm.
make sure an adult you know is with you when you're in a strange place. Like, and I don't know, you have to tell me if your parental units did this as well, but I remember Nick at Night was a big thing when I was growing up because it was like Nickelodeon all kids stuff during the day, and then in the evening they would play like Dragnet and all the shows that like our parents grew up watching.
My Three Sons,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
what was it, Donna Reed show?
Like all that stuff, the Patty Duke show. But I remember there was a specific episode of Dragnet, and I was little. Like we're talking like I don't know, like 5 or 6, and it's in relationship to drug addiction. And kind of long story short, the parents are so high that they forget the mother had drawn a bath for the child, and the child drowns in the bathtub. And my dad had me watch that, and he's like, that's why you should never do drugs. I can tell you, I have never tried an illegal drug in my life. And I think part of it was that. I mean, there are other reasons too, but um I really think that it it was effective, you know. Um, and granted my parents were pretty old school, and I'm not complaining at all, but I really just think like if Five Nights at Freddy would have come out when I was a kid, my dad would have been like, watch this. This is why you don't talk to strangers. Um, just, because through, like you said, through a child's eyes, if we're able to put ourselves somewhere in the storyline, it helps to conceptualize and understand things in a different way than an adult would.
And I think Abby really represents that. We haven't talked a lot about Abby. She sees herself. Like
Mm-hmm.
those animatronics are her friends. She sees, I'm guessing, the little dead children. Well, we
Yeah.
know that she does because she sees the kid that she says Freddy and he says not Freddy.
Mm-hmm.
That she sees them and she relates to children. And
Yeah.
as you're talking, right, Anna, you touch on stranger danger and don't talk to strangers. And then
Mm-hmm.
here we are at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza Joint, where there are people in costumes. So
Yep.
as children, we don't see them as strangers. We see
Mm-mm.
them as a friend. They are our friends. I'm guessing even if Abby did not see the little ghost children, they
Mm-hmm.
would still be her friends because as children, when we go to these
Yeah.
places, Chuck E. Cheese, there was
Mm-hmm.
Showbiz Pizza for a while when I was a kid. Those characters are meant to be
Oh,
our
yeah.
friends. They're cute, they're fun. So then we're not thinking that there is an adult in this
Mm-hmm.
costume
Yeah.
that wants to hurt us. And again, that's what makes this
Mm-hmm.
so much more scarier from a perspective that, again, there are predators in the
Mm-hmm.
world that cause ambiguous loss, that cause trauma, as Anna has touched on. Mike, Vanessa, all these people that have been impacted by the Yellow Bunny, SpringBonnie, William Afton's acts.
Yeah. Oh, it's
Yeah.
it really it really is it's something, and I would suggest anyone with children who you feel would be comfortable to watch this, watch it with your kids and see what they want to talk about. I mean, don't impart your adult wisdom or adult reaction on the child, but it may open up a conversation that you didn't expect with your child as well. So, and Margaret mentioned before that this could technically be baby horror. It certainly could. I mean, it can certainly open up a lot of different conversations with children.
Yes. And like Anna said, you don't know where they're going to go. Do they, before this movie, did they see animatronics as friendly?
Mm-hmm.
Are they curious? Why did Garrett get into the car? How? Because he looks like he's just looking out the window. He
Oh yeah,
doesn't
just
look
chilling. Like,
scared. He looks like he's, which also makes you wonder again, stranger
mm-hmm.
danger. What was it about the driver of that car that we now know was William Afton?
Mm-hmm.
Was he a family friend?
Yeah.
What happened? And that again is what makes it so scary. As children,
Mm-hmm.
we are so trusting, we are so innocent, and that there are
Yeah.
people out there that are going to manipulate that, use it to their advantage, which is terrifying.
Yes, it is. It really is. And oftentimes, I mean, I'm not sure of the exact statistic, but I did read not too long ago that a large proportion of abuse scenarios happen with an adult a child is familiar with.
Yes.
So it does kind of beg the question, you know, did Mike's family know the Afton family? And one of my friends who's sort of into the universe and was trying to educate me until like, my brain started melting out of my nose and then they just gave up. They said that apparently, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I truly don't know, but one of
Mhm.
the tropes is that Afton and Mike's dad have some sort of beef and it results like in all these sort of relational disturbances towards one another's family. So I don't know if that's true or not, but if we apply that theory to the movie, it kind of fits. Um, but like I said, I have no idea if that's true or not.
Well, that goes back to what I was trying to very summarize it in general terms, which it's really hard to do in the FNAF universe, is that there's Michael Afton and his business partner, Henry Emily. In the video games, Afton has 3 kids, Emily has one, twins in a book, so I'm not quite sure. So again, FNAF community, please share what
Mhm.
you believe here. And that's part of what it's believed, is that there is beef between the two. And so and
Mhm.
again, that's scary. We can look at divorce, how people use their children as pawns,
Yeah.
and how in this world, and actually, my understanding is that Afton is the aggressor and that Emily is really trying to undo what his business partner has done. He's really trying to protect the
Yeah.
children. He's really trying to fix what his business partner
Mhm.
has done wrong. There is speculation that Emily was smarter. He was more of a animatronic genius than Afton was. And that again is speculation. I really don't know. And like you said, Anna, that would make a lot of sense that there is this adult conflict. And how often does adult conflict impact children? If
Oh my
an
God.
adult, if your best friend's parent, your parents and your best friend's parents get into a fight, then you can't see your best friend anymore
Mhm.
because of a beef between two adults, not because,
Because you fell out. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, and even partnership building, like Emily and Afton, right? They're business partners. And how often does that impact the family unit in a less violent, upsetting concept? Okay, I found out that my business partner embezzled, or they're doing something that's not OSHA standard, or whatever behavior, right? So, of course, the Afton murder thing is very much to the extreme of that. But if you think about it, the other business partner has to do things to keep the business together and keep it going, and also try to rectify what, the person has done. So, working late, sacrificing their quality of life, their home life, once again, it affects the children. Um, I did something wrong. My business partner found out that I did something wrong. I'm pissed. I'm going to go home and yell at my wife or my husband and my children. And then I'll probably yell at the dog too. Right. And then the other business partner is like, holy crap, I have to fix all of these things. I have to deal with this person who like messed everything up. I'm never going to see my family. I'm never going to do any of the things I want for the next 12 to 15 months because of this idiot that I work with. And so their family is also impacted and they have a loss because they have to dedicate everything to the business or lose it. Um, so it's very interesting if you apply a corporate type of concept in the sacrifice and kind of behavioral issues that stem from that. And maybe part of that is what escalated the violence for Upton. Once again, I don't know the lore. I'm just trying to figure this out in my own little Anna brain here to make it a little better, but
and it might just be more confusing.
Yeah.
As I have deep dove into, and I'm still like, I'm not sure. And there's a lot of people, which I really appreciate in the community, that does speculate, and then they go and they use the video games and the books and now the movie to say, this is why I feel like it's this. This is why I think it's this. And again, I think that that's part of the draw with movies like FNAF or Communities, because people are trying to figure it out to ease their own unsettlement. Like Anna was saying, that incompleteness, that there was no resolution at the end of the movie. So then how do we get that resolution? How do we understand what happened? Yes.
But probably when we watch the sequel, maybe we'll learn more.
Maybe, or maybe it'll get more confusing. Like, there are some movies that you're like,
what?
Okay, you lost your thread.
Yeah, I will make all attempts to watch the sequel when it comes out.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And if you don't, then hey, maybe there's some FNAF fan out there that would like to co-host, and you can educate me and Anna, who will listen, on what is happening in this world.
Yeah.
So, Anna, who do you most relate to in the movie?
Definitely the social worker teacher lady, who's trying to encourage Mike and help him. I think it just because I think the more reality type of thing is just seeing parties in a situation and trying to encourage people while knowing that you can't do it for them. Definitely kind of touched a deep part of my soul. Like, oh, she has faith in Mike. He can do it. I hope he does it. I hope he gets to keep things going. Which is more the humanistic part of the story. How about you, Margaret?
Yes. Oh my gosh. My brain was ping-ponging all over the place as I could see parts of me in Vanessa, like wanting to help but not wanting to give a lot of information about who I am to protect myself, or Abby, just wanting to play and seeing the innocence in these children. Ultimately, I'm going to have to go with the cab driver, because when he's like, why do I always get the weird one? I can relate to that in pre-therapist life, where I used to work at a call center. I've been a case manager. And as a case manager, people were like, how do you always get like the weirdest cases? Or at the call center, I'd be like, how do I always just, like, the weirdest ones are just drawn to me? So when he said that, I was like, I completely relate. Because if I was that taxi driver, I'd be the one that'd be like, great, a little balloon boy is in the car and I don't even, yep, here we go.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The taxi driver was probably one of my favorite characters.
Side note, he's actually a FNAF YouTuber.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So the movie did cameos with not a lot. There was two. There was a third one who does like the video game playthroughs that couldn't make it. So the fan base was a little sad that he didn't get in it. But the waiter at the diner is also a FNAF YouTuber that actually does theories about the game. I think both of them do. The last guy, I'm not quite sure. So if you're listening, hey guy, tell us what you do on YouTube, and you can go ahead and link your channel. That would be
and also
awesome.
please help educate us too. We're particularly me.
We're like wandering around. We're like in the restaurant with our flashlight trying to piece the clues together.
Exactly.
Yes. Ooh. Well, thank you for listening. If you go to Chuck E. Cheese got rid of their animatronics. I was going to say something about enjoy your animatronics if you go to Chuck E. Cheese. They don't have them anymore.
Yeah. I heard it's because with Five Nights at Freddy's coming out, it was freaking kids out. I don't know if that's true.
It's not. It's part of the lore. That's what you gotta love. about the
Probably.
world.
Yeah, I'm thinking it's a supply chain cost analysis reason when you get down to the truth of it, but everybody's been like, oh, they stopped having Chucky because of Five Nights at Freddy's, man. Um, but I'm thinking it's probably supply chain related.
Yeah. And see, that proves, like, when we know this to this, how do we fill in that gap?
Mm-hmm.
Chuck E. Cheese doesn't have animatronics anymore. It must be because this movie just came out and not, like Anna was saying, supply chain. And I don't
Mm-hmm.
remember. I read something about it, and that piece of information was obviously not important for my brain to retain to why they quit having them.
Right?
But I think you're right. They've got to be expensive
Yeah,
to
I would
maintain.
assume.
That can't be cheap.
Yeah, I would assume it has something to do with like cost analysis reasons. But yeah, I mean, like Margaret said, I have before I got into the graduate program in thanatology, my background education, so my undergrad and the majority of my grad work is in organizational development, behavior, and business management. So looking at it from a cost analysis perspective, it's like, oh no, it just costs too much money. That's why. But if I didn't have that background, I'd be like, oh my God, it probably is because of Freddy. Um, so, although it would be great, remember Celebrity Deathmatch? Um, what if they did Freddy Fazbear versus Chuck E. Cheese in the ring?
Oh my gosh.
I'd pay to see.
That would be great. They could have like their little gangs,
Mhm.
like the Chuck E. Cheese and the Freddy gang, and they
Yeah.
could go at it.
And like Chucky would be like flinging out pizza, like scorching hot cheese pizza at. And like Freddy would have like the musical instruments and they would have some super duper like electrical power. Yeah.
That would be great.
I would pay for that. I would pay to see it.
Oh, yeah, definitely. So who are you, Team Chuck E. Cheese or Team Freddy?
Right? Oh, that's a good question. Listeners, are you Team Chuck E. Cheese or Team Freddy Fazbear?
Yes, let us know, please.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, yes. Well, this has been I thought this was a fun episode for some deep, dark topics.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you know, sometimes with the deep, dark stuff, there's still a silver lining or a bright side. You just have to search for it. And I mean, Margaret has been instrumental in this process for me after seeing the film. I will be honest, I'll probably never ever watch the movie again because it did affect me in some sort of way. But having someone who is more aware to talk to and kind of help you navigate not just watching a movie or playing a game, but any situation in life is tremendously valuable. And thank you, Margaret. You really have helped me a lot with this one. But it is. And it's great when you identify people and you have people who can help you through different situations and how they impact you. It is one of the most wonderful things in the world. And just as a reminder, whatever you're going through, if it's change, loss, grief, something exciting, great, exhaustingly wonderful news, or something that just feels like the worst day in the world, there are resources out there for you. And there are a lot of local supports within your community, outside of your community, even digital supports that you can explore and utilize. And just know that you're not alone. And there are people that want to take the time to discuss what you're feeling with you and help you look at how that may affect you and what you can do to progress in that and also be productive to your healing and to yourself.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for trusting me. Thank you for going along with me. I was a bit adamant that Anna watched this movie. I really wanted to talk about this movie. So thank you for trusting me. Thank you for going out on a limb and trying it and being able to come back and be like, yeah, it wasn't my thing. And when we trust people, then we can come back and be like, this wasn't my thing, knowing that the other person's like, okay, cool, like you tried it and it's not your thing, and we can have a conversation about why it's not your thing, why it's my thing, or maybe sometimes like I don't even want to go there. And that's okay. And like Anna was saying, we have support. So know those supports. Be like, hey, I want to talk about this, or I know you really like this. Are you in a place to hear why I don't like it? And some people may be like, no, I'm a diehard fan. I can't
Yeah.
hear it. And then, okay, who can I talk to about my experience watching this movie that was very activating? Because that happens. We watch movies, and coming up, we have a movie that Anna knows that is not my thing. And so, like, this was activating for her. The other movie was activating for me. And know that behind the scenes, we talk to each other.
Yeah.
Hey, if this is a hard pass, let me know. And we both know that there's going to be a couple, maybe solo
Yeah.
or
And that's okay.
yes,
Yeah.
that because the other one of us is like, no, I'm not doing that movie.
Yeah, and that's okay. Like, and you know, even as our listeners, if there are certain genres that you don't like, you don't have to listen to every episode. You can skip ahead. That's absolutely fine. That's totally understandable. All of us have movies that we have seen that we will never watch again. Um, and that's okay. Even like games we played or experiences we've had, it's like riding a roller coaster. You do it once, you never want to get on, or you're ready to go again. And that's cool. Like we all have different things and different ways that our minds work and things that we associate, and that is totally fine.
Yes. Well
Mhm.
said.
Well, thank you. I couldn't have done it without you. So thank you.
Likewise.
Yes. So we got this. And hey, like if you see something that you are unsure about or makes you feel some sort of way, you can always reach out to the Femme Fatalities as well. We are happy to provide feedback to you and help you in any way that we can. We've got some more stuff coming up. So why don't you finish up those little foxy fries, take another gulp of your super duper slushy, and tune in next time. Until then, have fun and howl at the moon.
Ooh. Bye. Thanks for listening.